Earlier this week, we had the Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation polls. The ruling Telangana Rashtra Samiti, TRS, emerged as the single largest party, winning about 55 of the 150 wards in a closely fought election. The Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, made huge gains to bag about 49 wards, followed by the All India Majlis-e-Ittihadul Muslimin, AIMIM, which trailed with 44 wards. The Indian National Congress finished with about 2 seats. Welcome to another episode of the Bharat Varta podcast, where we analyze the results and the significance of these results. So, with me, I have Rohit Jaraman, who you've heard on multiple Bharat Varta podcasts earlier, dissecting numbers, constituencies, voting patterns, and such. Welcome back, Rohit. Great to have you on the show.
Great to be back, Harry. Thanks.
Also, we have Sudhir Kumar making his debut today on the Bharat Varta podcast. Sudhir is a techie based out of Hyderabad. He's also a political junkie and writes pretty regularly in the media. Some of you might have read his articles on Mind Makers, Op India, and such. Welcome, Sudhir.
Thank you. Hi, Rohit.
Hi, Sudhir.
All right, so to begin things, Sudhir, can you help us with an overview of these elections?
Geographically, we're looking at the entire Hyderabad area that went to its third election after this GHMC was formed, Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation. About 75 lakh voters. So you're looking at about 1.2 crores population that has voted into this. Going into the election, this was a very significant one because this is the first time there was a possibility that the TRS will be unseated from a position of power ever since the state was formed at any level. In 2016, TRS won a landslide, 99 out of the 150 seats. MIM always wins 44 seats ever since GHMC was formed, and even in its previous form, actually. So those seats are always reserved. I mean, they are not into contest anyway, essentially. So you're basically looking at 105, 110 seats that are at stake. Right? And this 2020 election was the first time that there was everybody saw a possibility that TRS may be unseated from a position of power. And like the results have shown, they have come out. TRS has been unseated from that position of power. 75 was the midway mark, but they needed 67 seats to win the mayor seat all by themselves because of the council composition. They were not able to do both. 55 seats is pretty much a huge loss. I know some media has been trying to show it as it's the single largest party, etc. The party is welcome to feel good about it, but it is a huge loss for them. 55, they were 99 earlier, 55 now, and also have ceded a large space to the BJP, essentially.
Right.
So this election basically changed how political discourse will happen in the state going forward. So this is not just an election that was for a corporation in a small place. This actually has now changed how politics and discourse is viewed in the state of Telangana.
Right. So Rohit, just taking off from what Sudhir added, this is a milestone moment in many different ways, right? Can you help us understand, what led to this?
Yeah, so just to contextualize, right? I mean, and Sudhir made this very good point about it's not just really one local election in some place. That's important to say because this was something that was going on in media. Some politicians also, including interestingly, leaders and ministers of the TRS itself made this statement, and this happened because a lot of national BJP leaders came, right? I mean, starting from Home Minister Amit Shah to National President JP Nadda and UP CM Yogi, and several others were also involved, actually. So I think the importance here, you have to see by understanding that Telangana is not a particularly large state, right? It has around 17 Lok Sabha seats, which is not very big. And the area for around GHMC actually has around 4 of those Lok Sabha seats. Technically 5, but the 5th one is very small, so we can ignore that. And that around 24 out of the 119 assembly seats of Telangana is in the area that is voted yesterday. That is not voted, that was declared yesterday. That is GHMC. That's 20%. If you compare that to Bangalore or a Mumbai or even a Chennai, that's a very different percentage because all those areas can really get outvoted by rural areas. Have happened many times that the trend is different and all of that. But Hyderabad, to that extent really has an outsized importance on the political discourse of Telangana, right? And in terms of sheer political power, not just discourse, and also of course revenues. But let's not go there. So that's why I think this is pretty important. And the second thing is what happened right now was these elections were supposed to happen in 2021, I think February or March, and they were advanced by the TRS government and conducted in a very fast manner, right? I mean, it was, I think, announced sometime in the second week of November.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was 3
Within 10
week
days
time.
or something.
And, that was, of course, I mean, the larger thing here is that it was deliberately done to not give any other party time for preparation. And that brings us to the other story, right? As in, there was this by-election that happened in Telangana, which we had discussed on our Bharat Varta podcast on the Bihar results and the other by-polls, where there was this by-election in this seat called Dubaka, where I think the BJP won, and it took the seat away from the TRS, and it's pretty much considered to be a TRS stronghold. It was right in the old TRS heartland. So that's probably where this whole tension came for KCR and the TRS, and that's where this election sort of came. So that's the immediate context for this particular result. And that's, I think, where this result should be placed in the immediate political context of Telangana.
Right. So,
Actually,
Sudhir,
if I may add quickly to that, the context also started developing ever since TRS won its landslide in the 2018 assembly elections. Ever since, literally, it's been about, I think it's exactly 2 years since the election happened. Ever since KCR has shown or done many things that have put him in, very bad light. So more of a culmination of many wrong things that have gone from the TRS front has basically led to today's defeat.
Right. Yeah, Sudhir, I was going to ask you about the same thing. 99 to 55 and plus, I mean, losing the Dubaka by-polls, which I'm given to understand was contested by a relative of KCR itself, right? So
no, actually, it was the in charge was Harish Rao. He's the nephew of his finance minister of the state and nephew, very powerful guy.
Right. So this is clearly a development and, something that cannot be ignored, right? So what would you sort of attribute this to? Is it an anti-incumbency playing out, or is there something that, generally screwed up over the last couple of years that has led to this for TRS?
Definitely anti-incumbency is starting to build up. There is no doubt. It's been building up ever since the Lok Sabha election results have come out. So December 2018 is when we had the state elections. TRS won a landslide in those elections. Barely 5 months later, BJP came back, won four Lok Sabha seats. The Congress won 3, TRS won only 9, right? So that's where the revival of the BJP started. One, nobody anticipated that it would happen. Two, the bigger jolt was because KCR's daughter was defeated as an MP by the BJP. KCR's son was in charge for a constituency. BJP won there, essentially. So they hit right at the heart of TRS, right? Beating the CM's daughter, beating the CM's son. And all that was also attributed, one, of course, to the Modi factor, but two, also to the increasing arrogance of KCR, in not meeting people, in ignoring people, in how he speaks, etc., etc. That just continued. It didn't stop. No lessons were learned from that election. So that just continued. Dubaka's loss also was a carry forward of that attitude itself. Right? Dubaka is surrounded by KCR's constituency. Neighboring constituency is KCR, son KTR, and nephew Harish Rao. Right? So you can imagine how powerful that seat should have been. The reason is again because they have ignored the people, exhibited a lot of arrogance in how they speak, etc. And that's what showed up even in the Hyderabad elections.
Right. So Rohit, the other couple of parties, I mean, let's turn our focus to them. The Congress and TDP alliance in 2018 was an inflectional point, right? How has that panned out since then? I mean, what do you think happened there?
I think what basically happened starting from 2014, and if you see the current cabinet of Telangana, you'll understand that is so KCR. Most people and people may not remember this today, right? But when the Telangana state was declared and elections happened immediately, people didn't really expect KCR to actually even win a simple majority. He won a bare majority. The Congress got a respectable amount of seats. So did the BJP TDP alliance, which was then in power, which was then an alliance. They also did reasonably well. So what KCR did immediately after he came to power was he engineered mass defections, right? I mean, a large number of people from the Congress joined the TRS. Almost the entire TDP legislative party joined the TRS. It was only the BJP that he couldn't crack, but the BJP had only, I think, 5 members in the first Telangana assembly. So that itself, hurt the Congress, because the Congress, as we've discussed in most states, is basically a collection of a lot of powerful people who can win their own seats, who are added to what is called a core Congress vote bank, right? So that really hurt the Congress, that it lost in so many places. The TDP, I think, by then was a lost cause, because if you see where it had won in 2014, it was only mostly in Hyderabad city. It had won a few seats outside, but more or less it had become confined to a party of Greater Hyderabad because of the sentiment around the formation of Telangana, that it was seen as an Andhra party. So after that, Chandrababu Naidu did his whole drama, which everyone is well aware of. He joined hands with the Congress. What that did, interestingly, was KCR, again, the landslide was in 2018 is well known. But what a lot of people don't remember today is, in that build-up, it was quite a lot of commentary that KCR might not actually come back to power, or he will find it difficult to come back, or it might be a hung assembly. All sorts of things were said, and the Congress probably would have been in a fairly good position to sort of put the brakes on KCR, right? Because what had happened was the BJP also didn't really try to grow a lot in that 2014 to 18 period, because also I think because they were dependent on TRS in the Rajya Sabha some form, so they were playing a game of cat and mouse with KCR. The Congress sort of messed things up for itself by aligning with the TDP, which was by definitely seen as a Andhra party and really had no business contesting in large places in Telangana. It was still operating like the state had not been formed, which was not the wisest course of action. That sort of destroyed the Congress also. KCR won with this huge landslide. And then he did his same trick again, right? He poached however many few congressmen had won. They all went into the TRS. So the Congress got emptied out. And that's sort of the position where, for the BJP to grow in any state, it needs to first become one pole. And for that, it requires a lot of effort to take out one of the two poles, right? Like BJP sort of facing that in Tamil Nadu, for instance. It required a lot of effort in both Bengal and to some extent in Orissa. Telangana, I think it got a huge benefit from, because the BJP actually sat out for 4 years. It got this huge bump just because KCR sort of did the BJP's work for it by kicking the Congress out. And that sort of created this new player. I wouldn't say entirely new player. We can discuss that later when we come to the BJP. But this new, very relevant player suddenly has emerged on the scene. And the BJP totally changed its approach, of course, after its surprising wins in 2019, as Sudhir just mentioned.
Right. So, Sudhir, let's talk about the BJP's performance itself, right? I mean, it's a fantastic performance. Clearly, no doubt that, the standout performance in these elections, even though they're not the party with the highest number of seats, is the BJP, right? So what has really changed, from 2014 till now? Talk us through, what has really happened and how has this sort of trend developed over the years?
One main trend, I think, alluding to all the numbers that Rohit also was speaking so far, is that there was no opposition to the TRS till now, right? And after the 2018 elections, he did continue the defections, and there was literally no opposition because he merged the Congress Legislative Party into the TRS. So literally, there is no leader of opposition in the Telangana Assembly today. So and though he does all this, suddenly he calls for a quick assembly session, passes a couple of quick laws, and the session ends. And before you know, he has a 3-4 hour speech deriding everybody, and then it's done essentially, right? So there was definitely a lack of opposition. Maybe people were okay with it for some point of time, but once it started getting to TRS's head, right, and then the showcasing of we have no opposition, we are here to stay, is when BJP's growth also began. Basically, people began to see that a credible opposition is needed. One, BJP with its new set of leaders who have won the Lok Sabha elections can become a credible voice for that. With KCR, like Rohit said, doing BJP's job by decimating Congress, people have seen that BJP is an alternative, right? Now, how do you cash in on that alternative? It's all fine. Theoretically, it's all good, right? There's BJP, maybe it's an opposition. Is when the Dubbaka by-election came in, and when the party got into its full gear, essentially, and realized, oh yeah, we can electorally also start challenging the TRS and don't have to wait till 2022, 23, essentially. So with that context, and once he preponed the election, there are a lot of local issues that people are angry with TRS, irrespective of Dubbaka or not. And that's when BJP did the smart thing of this huge campaign strategy, right? Bringing in as many leaders as possible, spreading out across the city, have some leaders focus on development, some on the aggressive style, and then some only focusing on the MIM, essentially. So a combination of all these things plus the anger against TRS worked very well in favor of BJP this time.
Just add to that in terms of a slightly more historical context, sense that the BJP, by and large, has always had its pockets of influence in Telangana, right? I mean, right from, I think even in 1967, I think the BJP first started winning assembly seats in what is today Telangana, when it was a part of undivided Andhra Pradesh. And there were two places where the BJP would do well. The first was basically parts of Hyderabad city which are not completely dominated by the MIM, right? And that's where basically clearly there is some amount of communal polarization there. The MIM is obviously a communal party, and there is some amount of polarization, and the BJP used to get its seats in more Hindu dominated parts of older Hyderabad city, right? Not the GHMC area, but the previous Hyderabad Municipal Corporation area. The other interesting thing is the BJP always had its pockets of influence in rural Telangana. That's where Telangana is probably different from some of the other South Indian states, because a lot of us might have heard of Janga Reddy, who became one of the two MPs who was elected for the BJP in 1984 when it had only 2 MPs. He won from Hanamkonda, which is near Warangal. Seat doesn't exist anymore. Interestingly, Janga Reddy was a multiple time MLA before he won in 1984. So he had consistently won from places in and around Warangal district. And obviously a lot of this comes from Telangana's history, right? Because it was ruled by the Nizam. It was not even under direct British rule. That has led to some sort of there is always a communal, or rather a Hindutva undercurrent in Telangana. Even the RJB movement had a serious impact in Telangana, especially what are called the northern Telangana districts, right? And which incidentally enough became the TRS heartland just 10 years back, or even till 5 years back. So that's where the BJP always had a hold. The BJP kept losing it because of its compulsions in allying with the Telugu Desam. For instance, in 1999, when the BJP first allied, this was right after 98 Lok Sabha elections, BJP had won 4 seats in undivided Andhra. 2 came from Telangana. One was Secunderabad. The other was Karimnagar, which is again in northern Telangana. But the alliance, of course, was heavily weighed in favor of the TDP because of the larger national issues the BJP had to face, and that kept slowing the BJP down. What's happened now really is after the creation of Telangana, the TRS with its it's a very heavily family-driven party, right? Even by the standards of family-driven parties, the TRS is particularly dominated by a family, and that sort of means that, and interestingly enough, unlike a lot of other family-driven parties which are also at some level caste-based parties, problem the TRS faces is that the TRS is the community that Chandrasekhar Rao belongs, the Velma community, is not numerically strong beyond a point. I think it's around 2 to 3% of the population of Telangana, or even lesser. That's where a large part of the Velma strength used to actually come from getting votes of backward communities, that is other backward castes, and that's where the BJP historically had a base which was mostly swallowed up multiple times by the TDP and the TRS. But now it's just come out due to this other vacuum that's been created, and that's where I think this thing happened, and that's where you could see the Lok Sabha results, right? As Sudhir mentioned, KCR's daughter lost from Nizamabad, which is in northern Telangana, again a TRS stronghold. The current BJP president Bandi Sanjay won from Karimnagar, which BJP had won. Interestingly, the BJP lost in 2004 to KCR himself. Like Karimnagar was such a TRS stronghold that KCR stood from there. KCR's son represents a seat in Karimnagar. So BJP sort of hit hard at the TRS heartland, and that's what's really happened.
Right. Staying on the same topic, Sudhir, we hear often that, the BJP is sort of weak in the south and so on, right? So is there a larger significance to this considering the gains that they've made in this election? So do you think that maybe 2023, the BJP can come back and, capture power even?
Yeah, the election result definitely have opened up that possibility. At least before this result, that possibility also was seen as remote. Maybe BJP will be the principal opposition party, because to become principal opposition, you have to win 12 seats, basically. That's it in the whole assembly. But today it has become a very strong possibility that they'll be very close to coming to power also. On South India, I don't know why people keep making that argument. They've been in power in Karnataka, I think, from 2008 on and off, but they've come to power in Karnataka 2008, meaning they would have been, they would have been powerful at least 5-10 years before that, right? Like Rohit mentioned, through alliances, there was a time when BJP had 7 Lok Sabha members from the undivided state of Andhra Pradesh, about 12 or 14 MLAs in the assembly also. So broadly, the two states, Kerala and Tamil Nadu, traditionally they haven't had much of a presence for various reasons, of course. So like I was joking the other day, slowly the commentators will soon, once BJP gets a position of strength in Tamil Nadu and Kerala also, they will start saying BJP doesn't exist in Sri Lanka, south of the Indira Point, BJP doesn't exist or something like that. Yeah, and it's a path of it's how parties grow, right? It doesn't mean that it will never exist or come like that. But
right.
Electorally, what BJP has achieved now does open up the possibility of forming another government in a certain state. That definitely is a strong possibility right now. Of course, there are a lot of small steps that they have to take to get there. And then 3 years is a long time in politics, right? Miraculously, if KCR learns his mistakes, things may change. But definitely they've made him alert, I think.
Right. Yeah. Rohit, the other key party to discuss is AIMIM, and we've discussed the AIMIM's performance in the Bihar election review as well, right? And again, I mean, you see that Mr. Owaisi has sort of emerged as a kingmaker here. His party has won about 44 seats, right? So how do you sort of see the party performance and the significance of that result?
I think here there's not really much to say, right? I mean, as Sudhir said, around 40 to 45 seats is sort of almost reserved for the AIMIM due to sheer demographics, right? So it's been its base. It's been winning these seats for decades. He'll probably continue to win them for a while. So beyond the point, that's like no one really expected that, and no one really was surprised by it, and there's no larger significance. The bigger question really here is for the TRS, because now it can't get a mayor by itself, right? So, and even the Congress is too small to supply the difference. So basically he has only two options, because I mean, assuming that the BJP doesn't cooperate with him, which I think is a reasonable assumption, he has only two options. He can either ally with the AIMIM or break the BJP. Interestingly, that's what KTR hinted at yesterday when he said that there's no need to speculate on the mayor. There's still 2 months to go for that. So clearly there will be attempts to break the BJP, and that's going to be something which is very important, because if KCR has to actually depend on, or I mean, the TRS has to depend on the AIMIM to get its mayor in place, then that further strengthens the BJP's narrative, right? Because the BJP was, one of its key themes during this entire campaign was that a vote for the TRS is a vote for the AIMIM. And interestingly, the TRS was saying that's not the case, and that they have no connection with the AIMIM. Those two parties have been sort of in an informal alliance ever since the state was formed. So, like, that would just become a lot more difficult for the TRS to deny if they have to actually depend on AIMIM support to get the mayor position. And that's where that's going to be a big issue for the TRS, right? Because as I said when I was speaking about the BJP, the state of Telangana has a long history of like there is still memories of the Nizam's rule, right? And AIMIM, whether rightly or wrongly, is seen as an inheritor to that legacy. So how exactly is KCR going to marry that with his appeal to rural areas is going to be something that'll be a serious issue for him in 2023, unless he manages to break the BJP. Which, by the way, he already did. I mean, for instance, in the Nizamabad municipal corporation elections, something similar happened and he managed to break the BJP. So that's not,
I think
it's not too difficult, but
yeah. Nizamabad, they both allied. I don't think they broke the BJP.
They also broke the BJP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, after they allied. But
okay, yeah, it's a little difficult to do that. But one thing to note is, right, since 2014, the state once it was formed, KCR broke every party that had a representative. BSP had two MLAs. He merged both of them into the TRS, right? Of course, he broke the TDP, he broke the Congress, I mean the legislative party. So he actually broke the MLAs of every single party that got elected except for the BJP and the MIM. MIM always has 7 to 8 seats in the assembly. In the GHMC area, 40 to 45 seats. See, the key thing about MIM is even within their demographic, they don't have an opposition. Right? It's not like, okay, the TRS or BJP are, they're a different demographic, so they're not able to give. Even within their demographic, MIM has no opposition, like only for a brief period of 1-2 years, 20 years back. But they dominate that whole area. Right? The OIC brothers dominate that whole area. Now, that is one thing. No commentator will. Commentators are always worried about how Modi dominates the entire India when there is so much opposition, but are not worried that there is literally no opposition within even the MIM demographics, basically. So that's I think one of the key things that people have to start discussing as to why it is only the MIM that is representing that demographic. Here now across the country, we are seeing slowly they are sprouting Bihar, Maharashtra. Now, that's something that will need a larger discussion, definitely. Right. I don't think a possibility that they can break the BJP here. It's not easy in GHMC, given how the election was done. TRS MIM alliance definitely is on the cards. They are friendly. Those 5 days worth of fighting doesn't mean anything anyway. But it's going to hit him badly across the state, though. That's for sure. If he does this alliance.
Right. So, Rohit, you're going to get this question, right? I mean, This is a pet question of ours on every election episode, which is, the Congress has lost another election. So, at what point do you think it's going to cause any sort of a soul searching in terms of, doing anything about it?
I mean, if you look at it, I'll respond with my stock answer, right? In the sense that there's like clearly the Congress has, due to a variety of reasons, goofed up in Telangana. I mean, and of course in undivided Andhra Pradesh, right? This was a state that was the backbone of both the UPA governments. They had, I think, 29 and 32 seats or something like that, 2004 and 2009. And ever since the death of Y.S. Rajshekar Reddy, first they messed up by not making Jagan Mohan Reddy the chief minister. Then to sort of salvage that, they divided the state, which seems a pretty drastic overreaction. And then that obviously destroyed them for a generation, at least in residual Andhra Pradesh. And in Telangana, KCR outmaneuvered them, and then he's kept outmaneuvering them, right? And obviously, issues, as Sudhir said, like you couldn't, like he could break the Congress much more easily than he could break the BJP, and that's a structural issue with the Congress, right? The Congress is a mass-based party; it's not a cadre-based party. It's always going to be easy to break. Like that's why the BJP can break the Congress more easily in Karnataka than vice versa. So that's fine. The problem with the Congress really is that in the state, at least, and it was not entirely that the BJP did something extraordinary, right? Somehow it just, I think the Congress was hoping to just plod along and wait for natural anti-incumbency to hit KCR, which was a fair strategy. But then it got hit by two things. One was its self-inflicted mess up of aligning with the TDP, which is really not liked in Telangana. On top of that, somehow things conspired in 2019 at multiple levels to give the BJP a boost by winning more seats than it expected. And the BJP really capitalized on that, while the Congress, because of what it has become at a national level, was really in no position. So I think the Congress right now faces a really long way back. If you ask me, I think it's going to be very difficult for Congress. Of course, the Congress will retain a fairly basic vote share of 10 to 15% across the state. A few strong leaders who refuse to leave the party will continue to probably win their assembly seat, etc. But at a state level, I think the road back for the Congress is going to be hard because the BJP has sort of, like, the BJP always had an opening in Telangana, right, which it could not take for the last 50 years because of various reasons. Now it's found that opening, it's taken it. I don't think it's going to get dislodged from that one base because there's always space for a Hindutva party in Telangana. But now really it's the Congress will have to, if it's going to become one more pole, it will have to sort of dethrone the Telangana Rashtra Samiti, right? That's not really on the cards for at least 10, 15 years. So that's where I think the Congress is. And national level, I mean, beyond a point, okay, Congress got 3 seats from Telangana, that's it. It has bigger fish to fry. I honestly say at this point, it has bigger problems.
Right.
Actually, what the problem with Congress? Sorry, quick addendum to that. So the state president, Uttam Kumar Reddy, he was one of the 3 MPs who won in 2019. And then he was an MLA also at that point of time. So he obviously had to resign the MLA seat. And then as his Congress's culture, his wife got the MLA ticket. Right? And then TRS put in so much efforts to make sure the state president's wife loses that seat. Right? That was the first indication also that people don't want, people are vexed with how Congress behaves with the populace, right? The state president's seat is lost. Nothing can be bigger than that, right? Some people wanted him to resign, etc. He didn't. He resigned last night, by the way. He didn't make too much news, but he resigned last night. And within moments of this is what is wrong with Congress. Right? Within moments of that resignation, some leaders met. No Reddy should become the president. An SC or a BC should be given opportunity. One batch met at one hotel. Another batch met at another hotel saying, no, Reddys are the most popular group. They should, somebody from that should be again appointed. This is exactly what is wrong with Congress, right? even after in this day and this age, when people are trying to move away from these, within few hours of their president resigning, again factions of whatever is left in the Congress are debating which caste should represent the president. So as long as they are in that mindset, the revival is not possible here, of course, but even nationwide, this is how they think, right? So, yeah, a revival of Congress is difficult as long as they stick to these basics of theirs.
Right. Sudhir, any space for Jagan in Telangana?
Yeah. They're split. The TDP, YCP are more in Andhra Pradesh. Any space they will have maybe in the bordering districts, Khammam, etc. But that's again very minimal. But towards this side, none of the parties that are strong in Andhra will not have space here. TDP, YCP.
Right. Yeah, and any impact that this will have on the Andhra, voting elections as such?
No, it will. The only revival that will be possible is of the BJP in Andhra. Definitely not at this scale because people are still angry with the party for various reasons. They'll need equally competent voices to communicate what is right with the party, etc. But this will definitely enthuse the cadre, right? Till 2 days back, the position of BJP was pretty similar in Telangana and Andhra in terms of the local units. Now they will take strength from here and then try to grow there. But no broad changes will happen. No sudden, okay, BJP will be emerge a contender in AP. That won't happen immediately.
Right.
Just one thing to add on, at least YCP's chances in Telangana. I totally agree with Sudhir that can't become a significant player. But I think what it can do, and obviously depends on the interests of Jagan Reddy himself, is whether it can start creating pockets. Because if you remember, the YCP had won the Khammam seat in 2014. It can again create pockets again in other districts, not just bordering Andhra, and other places where Reddy, even in GHMC, where Reddy community leaders have significant influence. And what it will really do is it will further create problems in this whole anti-BJP pole of the state, right? Because the BJP has found its niche now, and people are trying to create that coalition to oppose that. It's just possible that, and right now I think why Jagan Reddy has stayed out because there's also they're on very good terms, right? The TRS and the YSRCP are two parties. But if the TRS does weaken, and we'll have to, of course, see what 2023 brings, none of this really holds true for 2023 or even the Lok Sabha in 2024. And long term, if TRS weakens, then definitely I think Mr. Jagan Reddy might see some pockets of opportunity to grow his party, not to be in a position of power or to be a chief minister or something, but just in terms of getting more influence or just winning seats, etc. So I think that's definitely going to be a important there, because Reddys as a community do have very, very significant influence in Telangana, and there is, of course, latent respect for Rajshekar Reddy and even some sort of this thing for Jagan Reddy in the community.
Right. So, guys, we've looked at this from many different ways and dissected the results. One of the final questions I wanted to understand from Sudhir is, how this is, and you've talked about this in a couple of articles you've written as well, how this is being spun in the media, right? The narrative as such, and looks like, the exit polls got it wrong yet again, right? So what is the narrative that they are reading from this, and what should people actually read from this?
Definitely not what the English media outside of the state wants to project, right? That this has been a communal election, that BJP paraded its national leaders and etc. etc. This particular election was as local as it could get. There was campaigning about traffic, about roads, about drainage, about floods, etc. Questions posed to the corporators. There was anger against the corporators per se. Now, obviously, when you get leaders, when you go campaigning, you also would cover a plethora of other issues regarding the state and etc. Right? So definitely, another lesson is that all elections are first fought on local issues. If it's GHMC, obviously related to the corporators, etc. If it's state assembly, about how the MLAs perform, etc. This election is basically, that's why a verdict against how TRS has governed GHMC in particular, coupled with how they have in general started behaving in the last couple of years. That definitely is the narrative. The communal narrative, if I've been telling this earlier also, if MIM is there, it will be communal, right? I mean, MIM is a communal party in all its truest sense. So there will be communal narrative as long as MIM is the key player, or one of the key players in the election. Why they don't release manifestos, why they don't speak about development, nobody knows. Yet they keep winning, nobody knows. But issues that are communal nature will come up if MIM is a key player in any election. So that way, yeah, maybe at some pockets there was communalization, but if MIM is there, what else did you expect, essentially?
Right.
But as local as it could get, this election got as local as it could get.
Right. Rohit, final thoughts from you, and then we can end the podcast.
Sure, Gary. I think big question really at the end of the day is how this will play out for the assembly elections, right? Because that's where everyone is really looking at, and of course then the Lok Sabha. And there clearly now it's going to be a contest between the TRS and the BJP. And it's really going to be a game of whether, as Sudhir said, KCR can change his style of governance and be able to sort of win back his popularity, right? And their big role will obviously be played by his children, because both of them, while his daughter is not a minister, both of them have serious influence in the administration. KTR is seen as his heir apparent, so as to speak, and so there definitely the TRS may have to course correct whether to see if KTR will be able to have the same impact as KCR, whether it's creating an issue. That's one. For the BJP, it is at the end of the day to get power. Of course, the BJP has done this. I mean, in Haryana, it jumped from 4 to 52 or something. It did something very similar in Tripura. But at the end of the day, this is a party that won one seat, right, out of 119 in 2018. So 119 means roughly you have to win around 60 seats. It has to gain 59 one by election. So it has to really focus on getting where, finding out which are those seats it can target and do a very focused campaign. It seems to have got its state leadership in place pretty well. Okay. So that way that works. But and I think there's another by-election now coming up in Nagarjuna Sagar. So that should show further indications of whether BJP can pull gains. It may have to do some targeted poaching of leaders. So it's a long way ahead for the BJP, but at least I think there's definitely going to be a tight contest in 2023 as opposed to 2018.
All right.
Quick anecdote on the heir apparent. Ever since 2018, every time an election comes up, a rumor comes up that after this election, KCR will hand over CMship to his son KCR, and he will play a larger national role. So before Lok Sabha elections also, same thing happened, and they lost so badly, so that rumor got quashed. Before GHMC also, same thing happened. That after this, KCR will form a federal front, travel the country, and then KTR will become chief minister. Now even again that is gone. So hopefully 2023 we don't know what will happen.
Right. Yeah, definitely an interesting point in political history, I would say, right? Who would have thought that a municipal election would be discussed in as much detail and as keenly fought as such. But yeah, such are the times. And thank you so much, Sudhir. Thank you, Rohit, for adding a lot of color to the numbers and giving us your perspectives. Hopefully, we talk to you guys really soon about other things. Right? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roshan.
Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you, Rohit. Thank you for tuning in. This podcast was brought to you by the team at Bharat Varta. If you liked this podcast, then don't forget to share, subscribe, and rate us on your favorite platforms. We're available on Anchor, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, Breaker, YouTube, and a host of other platforms. We started Bharat Varta to facilitate long-form discussions on politics, policy, and culture. We don't necessarily endorse anything that was said in this episode. If you do wish to offer us any feedback on the content or anything else, do reach out to us on social media or get in touch with us on our website, www.bharatvarta.in. The links are in the description below. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe, take care, and Jai Hind.